Hello! Today we're going to be doing metric conversions using the metric system. If you have not done it yet, you need to print out this document right here. It says Metric Mania and it's metric conversions. If not, head on over to the Moodle site and print this document out and make sure you are ready. So pause this video if you have not. But anyways, today we're going to start using the metric system, which is the standard way that scientists use for measurement. And we're going to be looking at this PowerPoint today. So the metric system, we're going to be using something called the ladder method in order to convert our metric measurements. But let's first talk about the metric system before we get too in depth here. The metric system is just a system of measurement based on the decimal system. And we'll get to that in a little bit. It's used in all science, and 99% of the countries use this for measurement. There are about 3 or 4 countries that do not use the metric system, but the rest of the 100+ countries use the metric system for all of their measurements. The United States being one of those countries that does not use the metric system. There's been talk of changing over to the metric system back in the 80s or 90s, I think, but it has not happened. And the longer we wait and the longer we do not change to the metric system, the more expensive it will cost, or we'll never do it because we're America. But anyways, this is the metric system today. And so the system we use in the United States is called the imperial system, and we have some different measurements that we use that I'm going to go over in just a second. I'm going to say that these are bad for science. These are bad measurements we use for science, but it's what we know and it's what we've always kind of used here in America. So a lot of these are going to seem familiar to you. The metric system, which they use in almost every other country in the world. And in science, these are good for science. These are the things that scientists use, and these allow scientists from different countries to communicate, to talk to each other, and have the same system of measurement. But let's start on the left-hand side here. We have fluid ounces, we have cups, we have pints and gallons. This is for volume. Those are things you're probably familiar with. If you do any cooking, you'll be dealing with cups, pints, and stuff like that. If you guys buy milk in the big plastic jugs, you're probably going to buy a gallon. However, the one thing we do see in America when it comes to liters is we do see a liter, 2-liter colas at the grocery store or on whatever market or thing you have in your village. But we actually do see that a little bit in America, and that's the 2-liter size right there. So the metric version is liter, and the imperial, the bad ones, you've probably seen those before, is the gallons, the pints, and the cups. As for distance, we use inches, and we use feet, and we use yards, and of course, as there's 12 inches in a foot, and there's 3 feet in a yard. That doesn't make any sense. How do you convert those things? But they're there, and they're available. In the metric system, they just use the meter, and you can modify that as millimeter, centimeter, meter, kilometer, and all that good stuff. If we have any runners out there, maybe you've ran a 5K, which is just 5,000 kilometers. And we'll talk about how to convert those, which is much easier than the conversion system we're using right here with inches, feet, pound. When it comes to mass or weight, we have ounces, and we have pounds, and we have tons in our imperial system in the United States of America. But in the metric system, they have grams. So milligrams, centigrams, grams, kilograms. And then lastly, when it comes to temperature, in America, we use Fahrenheit, and maybe it's 60 degrees where you're at right now. But in the metric system and internationally, they use Celsius. So if you've ever traveled anywhere, you might see that the weather forecast is going to be in Celsius. So moving on, you should have this sheet out right now. And what you're going to do is you're going to fill in these squares right here. And I'm going to put them all up right there, and I want you to pause the video right now, and I want you to fill in this information. If you haven't paused yet, pause the video now and fill in this information. This information being right here. This stuff. All right, now that you have that filled in, let's talk about this. These right here are modifiers that you can use on your basic unit of meters, liters, and grams. Meters is for distance, liters is for volume, like liquids, stuff like that, and grams is for weight. And what we can do is we convert these things from smaller units to bigger units, or we can go from bigger units to smaller units, and it's really easy to convert them. So we're going to be using something called the ladder method. And the latter method is very simple. You're always going to start with your starting point. Then you're going to count the number of jumps to your ending point. And you're going to move the decimal the same number of jumps in that direction. So let's look at an example. For example, we have 4 kilometers, which is a distance. That's our starting point right here. What we want to do is we want to look at the first letter if there's 2 letters. The first letter there is a K, and that's our starting point. And then we have our ending point, which is an M right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at our starting point, which is K for kilometer. And then we're going to head down to our ending point, which is meters, right there. And just so you know, if you ever see one letter, that means it is a basic unit. So one letter means it's a basic unit. It's this guy right here. So I'm going to try and write this with my mouse, and it's not going to look good, but bear with me. Letter. I'm sorry. There's probably a better way. So our starting point is K, which is up here, and our ending point is M, which is over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the jumps down the ladder. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3 jumps down. So 1, how many jumps does it take? It takes 3. So 1 jump, 2 jump, 3 jump. And what I always do is I always rewrite my number with a decimal after it. If you have a number that's all by itself right there, that number is really the same number as 4.0. So that's 4.0 because there's a hidden decimal that you can't see right after there. If they don't put a decimal, it's always after the number. So it took us 3 jumps, and so we come 1 jump over with our decimal. We're going to fill in a 0 right there. 1 more jump over, fill in another 0 right there, and then take a 3rd jump over and fill in another 0 there. So that number, 4 kilometers, is going to be equal to 4,000 meters. So 4 kilometers is 4,000 meters. And our final decimal point gets placed at the end of that number. So there's a hidden decimal point you cannot see, but it's right there. And it's 4,000.0 meters, but you can just put 4,000 meters. So we're going to try a couple conversions ourselves here. If you think you know what you're doing, you can pause the video right now and you can try it out. If you don't think you know what you're doing, I'm going to do the first 3 of these together. And so we'll start off with this one right here, which is 1,000. And we're going to look at the first letter there, and we're going to go from M. And so what we're going to do is we're going to find the one that begins with M. So it's milli down here at the bottom. And we're going to see where we're going to end up. We're going to end up at G right there. So we're going to go from M to G. And remember, the rule is if it's one letter, that means it's basic unit. So 1 letter is right there. So we'll go from M to G. So I go from M, I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3 hops right there. And that is going to get us, and I'm going to do this here with my pen. 1, 2, 3 to the left, and that is going to get us 1.0, and so that's 1.0 grams. Let's try this one right here. We're going to go from liters to milliliters. And again, if it's 1 letter, that means it's basic unit. So we're starting right here. And then we're going to look for the M. Where's the M? Oh, it's right there at milli. So we're going to go from basic to milli. And we're going to hop over 1, 2, 3 to the right. So we go from here to here, 3 to the right. What I like to do is I like to rewrite these things. And so I'm going to put the 1 right there and my decimal right there and go 1, 2, 3 to the right. That is 1,000 milliliters. And this one right here, I'll do this next one, 160 centimeters to millimeters. And this is the unit of length. And so I'm starting at the C and I'm finishing at the M. Find my starting point here, finishing at the M over here. I'm going to hop over 1 to the right. So I'm going to rewrite my number to make this easy and hop over. There's my decimal point right there. Hop over 1 to the right, put in my 0, and that is 1,600 millimeters. Let's do one more. This is fun. 14 kilometers, this is distance, to meters. K, right here, starting point, ending point, one letter, and we know the rule with one letter is that it's always going to be basic unit. So I'm going to write 14 here. And then I'm going to go from K, starting unit, to one letter, ending unit, basic unit. And I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3. So 14.0. 3 to the right. 1, 2, 3. 0, 0, 0. And it's 14,000 meters. 14,000. And for the answers, I want you to pause the video right now if you have not, and I want you to do these last two right here on your own so you have a chance to try it out. I'm just going to put the answer in right now, so pause it, try it out, try and do these last two, and then when you restart it, the answers will be on. So 109 grams to kilograms, 3 to the left, 0.10. 9, and then 250 meters to kilometers is going to be basically the same thing. 200.250. So for our last ones here, what you're going to do is you're going to see if things are greater than, less than, or equal to. This is the alligator or Pac-Man. The alligator or Pac-Man is always going to eat the bigger number. So for these, what we have to do is we have to get them in the same exact unit before we can compare them. So I always take the first one just because it's easier. And what I'll have to do is I'll have to take the first one, we're comparing these two numbers, and I'm going to have to see, put them in the same exact unit. So we'll start with 56 centimeters here. I'm going to rewrite 56. I'd write it below it if I could, but I don't have enough space. And I'm going to go from centi to milli. Remember, one letters is always going to be basic unit. I'll start with centi over here. And so I'm going to hop over 1, 2 to the left, and 2 to the left. So now I have 50, or 0.5. That's a terrible decimal, but it's there. 0.56 meters versus 6 meters. 6 meters is way bigger than 0.56 meters. And so that is going to eat the bigger number. This next one right here, 7 grams to 600 compared to 698 milligrams. I'm going to take 7. That is a bad 7. I'm going to rewrite that 7 right there. And I'm going to go from grams to milligrams. And then, so I'll start grams, basic unit. Milligrams over here. I'm going to hop over 1, 2, 3 to the right. So 7. 1, 2, 3 to the right, 0, 0, 0. And so is 7,000 milligrams greater than 698 milligrams? Yes, it is. Alligator eats the 7 grams right there. So, oopsies. So, on this right now, I want you to continue to do the rest of this. I want you to just ignore this part right here if you don't know what you're doing. We can kind of talk about this in class a little bit right here, but ignore this part. The rest of these conversions, I want you to try on your own, and then we're going to compare answers.